to Cheer Chat, you guys. I've missed you. It's actually been a week. Is that 2 weeks now? I didn't go live last week. I missed you guys. I was on vacation in Florida with one of my best friends. I was there for a whole week, and I'll just say that this week has been a struggle. You know how you go away for vacation and then you're like, oh, I still feel so refreshed, so renewed, and then you get back to work and you're just like so not feeling it. That's me this week. I've just been struggle busting it along, and it's almost Friday. Thank God for Hump Day. Couldn't make it live yesterday because my daughter got back from Houston, Texas. She's getting my travel bug, and I had to pick her up. And logistically, I wanted to be fresh because we have so much to talk about, and I really thought we'll do something different. The episode Rock the Boat was posted today, and so I'm chatting with you guys on a Wednesday, but I hope a lot more people can join. Who knows? We'll see. But I'm excited because, there's only one more episode of this season. I kind of can't believe that it's gone really quickly. And this was like a 5 by the seat of my pants kind of a season, but I'm really happy with the episodes this season. I'm so happy there's so much stuff to talk about. That's made a huge difference, I think, in the podcast in general. And then there's just more to come. Thank you. I never do anything different with my hair, you guys. I'm so boring. And I was scared of the Florida heat and humidity. And so I thought I would get my hair braided. And it takes some getting used to. I have thick hair, so there's just a lot of braids up in here. But thank you. We'll see how long this lasts. Last time I got braids, it was so different, you guys, that I cried. I'm such a dramatic person, but it looked so different, and I just had a little bit of a meltdown. That's really embarrassing. I already finished my rosé, so, just bear with me, buckle up, Buttercup, because who knows how this is going to go. But anyway, I'm a little dramatic. I was a little bit more used to it this time, so I embraced it. Thank you for the compliment. Thank you guys for joining. I was just saying that the season's almost over, and, there's just a lot more that I wanted to cover this season that I'm excited to just have it carry over into season 9. Season 9, you guys. Thank you for being such great supporters of this podcast. I kind of like that we've done this whole little cheer chat together and then the podcast interviews separately. Oh, y'all are talking to me. Let's see. I don't want to miss anything. But anyway, I just really am excited to have this interaction with you guys. And again, there's more topics and scheduling, and it's the summer and people are traveling. So just stay tuned. It'll carry over to season 9. But today, I have so much to talk to you guys about. It's ridiculous. Okay. Let's see. Before I forget, because I know I'll forget, I have this whole agenda planned out here, but I get excited and then I get to. But I'm going to Las Vegas at the end of July to go to Pro Action Dance. And so I'm hoping to go as a vendor, all official and whatnot, but I'll have a table and I hope people come by and say hi. I mean, I pretty much know you guys through Instagram, but it would be great to meet in person. I hope there are teams that are going. Y'all can pop up in the comments and let me know. But I'm excited. I just want to watch the showcases with everybody performing and seeing the choreography. I just want to see everything live. I need that energy. I miss that. It'll be so much better to see that in person than just watching it on Instagram. So super excited about that. We're going to California, basically right after that trip. So anyway, up and at 'em. I'm really excited about some games coming up for football, obviously, where fans are invited. I have no idea if I'll score tickets anywhere, but one of the teams that's on my list to go see are the Raiderettes. I want to see that new stadium. I want to see them they're kind of like my new favorite team. And not that they weren't before. I was already kind of fangirling on them, but I just love all the glitz and glam and just the glamour of all of the things Raiderettes. And I would love to get down to see the Rams. I mean, I'm just going to probably do some West Coast stuff until I can get my butt over to the east side. But anyway, just excited for football. It's getting closer and closer. I'm seeing the teams performing at like open practices and whatnot. So it just feels so good, you guys, to actually see everybody doing their thing again, right? Like it's just, just we needed that. So excited. So anyway, and I also get pretty excited because of audition season. Chargers. Yeah, I would go see the Chargers, but they don't have their Charger girls. They don't have their cheerleaders. So that's on my list of like, what the hell is up with that? But I would see them, but they don't have the cheerleaders to watch. So I think I'm going to have to go see the Rams. Yeah, what's up with the Charger girls? Nobody knows, but whatever. Okay, so I also get excited because of audition season and the NBA auditions. I've been like reposting everything in my story. I'm not going to give you like a rundown of dates. They're popping off. Like it's just, I don't know what it is. It's just the energy. I think because some of the auditions are in person now, like it's just getting, I don't know, all of the feels, all of the energy. And I've had the pleasure of being a moderator for a coaches panel discussion that was put on by Cultivate Code. Sabrina and Amira from the Golden State Warriors are amazing, and they put together a fabulous panel of NBA coaches, and that also got me hella pumped for audition season because they were just talking about what they were looking for, and there's nothing like hearing it from the horse's mouth, right? Like just what their style is, what their vibe is, what they're really, really looking for. Not just so much in terms of auditions, but once you make the team. And they were just so frank. We had Alyssa from the Knicks, Michelle from Blazers, Natalia from the Heat, Paige from Oklahoma City Thunder Girls, and then of course Sabrina and Amira piping in as well for what they're looking for the Warriors dancers. And I don't know, like you guys pay attention to the social media accounts. A lot of the directors are going live and talking about what it is that they're looking for in auditions and the process, because things have changed. Some of them are keeping some of the virtual aspects. Some of them are doing things in person, knowing what your requirements are in terms of being vaccinated ahead of time for the in-person, like lots of logistical things that I think you just want to be mindful of. So yeah. I see you, Kai. We're going to dance for the whole stadium. Okay. Well, if I could get down on the field and bust a move, I sure as hell would. But I want to see cheerleaders perform. So all season long, as now that everybody's traveling, stuff's a lot more expensive now. But I would love to go to as many games as possible. And if you want to be down to kind of get together to go to a game, let me know. So anyway, super excited about NBA auditions. I encourage people who obviously didn't have things work out in their favor for NFL auditions to consider NBA, right? I mean, you never know what can happen. And I'm also posting audition information for different, I wouldn't even necessarily call them semi-pro. I mean, they're not the majors with like NBA or NFL, but there's a lot of auditions. So whether it's just for the experience rather than waiting a whole year, just keep it in mind. You never know what can happen, and you can have a great experience. So let's see. Okay, NFL auditions update. I just was kind of doing a little perusing of what's going on. There have been, of course, a couple of squad announcements with the 49ers Gold Rush. I don't know if you guys saw the announcement, but Lindsay Rosenberg, her pictures that she takes of the dancers, I mean, I just love her photography so much. But congratulations to all of those dancers. The Arizona Cardinals selected their squad as well. And I'm seeing lots of diversity and like interesting squads forming. And so I'm excited to see the official bios. That's kind of what I ended up doing, was trying to look and see if I had some good bios to work through and call out some special shout outs to people that stood out. And there's not, a lot of the teams don't have bios up yet or their photo shoots finalized. So we'll give it time. Maybe I'll open season 9 with that. But I will say so far, the Raiderettes have definitely have the bios on lock. Their pictures are just fabulous. I want this lookbook when I get to Vegas. I have to remember to stop by their little team store so I can get one. But their swimsuit photos are amazing, and just they have a lot of information in their bios, lots of personality for their cheerleaders. I mean, I don't know who's running their social media, but it's just content, favorite quotes. You're just getting such a good flavor for the team, and that's why they're kind of my favorite right now. But I was noticing, obviously, again, like I said, nothing for the Charger girls, so I'm still hella annoyed by that. The Vikings, I don't know if you guys saw it, but they kind of slipped in there with a little, not much going on to kind of prep. I think they had maybe one prep class, but then they just bust out with auditions and submit your stuff in like a week or something. It was crazy. I hope people were watching and ready and waiting for that announcement, because I feel like it was just like a really quick turnaround, and I don't know what the rest of their process is like, but we'll see. But it was very kind of under the radar. And then if anybody knows what's going on with the Detroit Lions, maybe they kept their squad from last season. I don't know, but they also haven't posted anything. They're doing appearances in the community, which is good. So I'm assuming it's just last year's squad. Let's just assume that's what's going on. The New Orleans Saints. Anyone? Bueller? They had this whole announcement of the new teams that they were forming, and according to the schedule that they laid out, they would have picked their squad at the end of June. So what are we waiting for? Like, I don't know what's going on with that. It wrapped on June 27th, and it's the 14th of July. Yeah. So what's going on? What are these teams? What was the turnout like? Like, I want to know all of the things with this New Orleans Saints entertainment fiesta. Obviously, we still haven't heard anything official from Washington football team, even though I know that there have been posts by different people of making the team. Still kind of mum about the new logo and team name and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm sure it's going to be one big grand reveal party, and we'll just have to wait until that happens to know what's going on. It's fine. I'm patient. And then the Houston Texans, they are in their final round, and they have posted their finalists, and then they have this whole voting thing. And I know when Brittany and I were talking about this at one point with auditions, like, I don't know how you guys really feel about the voting. I'm kind of on the fence about it. Like, there's unlimited voting. You can go. I voted pretty much for damn near everybody. You can vote every day if you wanted to. I think voting closes on Friday. But it looks like it's going to be a pretty interesting squad there too. So I'm excited to see who makes the team. Again, with the bios, you guys, I'm kind of waiting for things to get solidified. As I mentioned several times, there's this diversity survey that I'm doing. Again, for 2021, just starting with NFL teams until the NBA teams form. But the link is in my bio. It's going to be moved to my website at procheerleadingpodcast.com so that you guys can access that. I really encourage you, if you want to be counted accurately, if you just care about understanding like what the diversity and inclusion looks like in our space, please just go. It's a really simple form. There have been people who've been filling it out. I kind of added something new this time, of just kind of like a general catch-all about like any concerns that you want to share about diversity and inclusion in general. And people, it's just a free form, and people have been talking about the positives or negatives of just kind of diversity and inclusion on their team, which I just think is good, like qualitative feedback. So I encourage you to just use that to say whatever it is you want. And then we'll have, an episode recap, but I'm hoping to share the results of the diversity survey as well as the compensation survey that's going to be up next week. And again, available on the website where people share what they're actually paid. So that's information that will be shared in season 9 too. Okay, somebody said, I heard the Saints auditions were very different this year from someone who auditioned for them. Yeah, they broke down this whole like stunting business, like kind of like a hype squad sounding like, yeah, it seemed like an interesting auditions process. So, and somebody on YouTube mentioned just that the Lions didn't host auditions this year, that they want to do it live in 2022. And they do have a pretty involved auditions process from what I remember, the Detroit Lions. So they may just be opting for in-person. It sounds like in NBA too, that's the preference, because they're reading so much because they spend so much time together. I think they really want to get a sense of who they're selecting. There are a few teams that have training camps, obviously, in the NFL, but we'll see. I mean, just announce the squad already. Okay. Then what else did I want to mention? Just like congratulations to all the captains for these NFL teams that have been posted by the Rams, the Colts, the Chiefs. I think it's great to give the captains a little bit of shine, and it was exciting to see who was named as captain. And I think, it's just exciting. It makes you kind of, congratulations to all of them. I would name them, but that's a lot, and I don't want to leave anybody out. But let's see, because I want to get to this contract stuff, you guys. Okay, let's see. Did I mention everything? Yes. Are you guys ready to talk contracts? I'm excited about it. Like, again, I have like 8 years of experience as an attorney, nothing but commercial work and contracts and whatnot. And, I've supported like marketing clients and just you name it. And people who just like, they don't understand contracts, they don't do them, they're intimidated by them. And I enjoy making it fun and entertaining and interesting. And I give trainings on it all the time. And so it's kind of a challenge to make this exciting. So I'll do my best, but there's some juicy, not even juicy, maybe I'm a nerd and I think it's juicy, but I just wanted to highlight for you guys some of the things that I saw in the contracts that people sent over. I do want to thank everybody for trusting me with that. I mean, again, no team names will be mentioned. I just thought it was just helpful to be able to see a couple of different contracts and the types of provisions that they have, what the similarities are. And it's really just to help you guys. And I mean, I don't know if you guys are reading them and completely understand them. But I just want to get people's feedback and take on what these provisions say. And if you just happen to really know what the heck is going on in there. So we're going to talk about like, who are the parties to the contract, because that might vary by team. We're going to talk about all these additional documents, policies, rules, constitutions, bylaws, all this stuff that we are actually bound by in these contracts that I don't think anybody gets to see. That's a very, very interesting tidbit. I think that you guys should probably Google when you get done with this. But anyway, there's also some COVID provisions in the contracts that I've seen. The promotion and use of the team logos. I think this is kind of a big one that goes somewhat hand in hand with name and likeness. Some of the restrictions that the teams have on what you can use that include their logos. And it's very uneven, but what they can do with your name and your likeness. And so I think that's just a very good conversation for us to have. Confidentiality, again, for people who sent it in, I know you kind of broke that because the agreements themselves are confidential information, but I'm not telling. And if anybody is interested in just sharing theirs, again, this is just for, I guess I don't look at myself as the press. This is not going anywhere, but just right here. And again, I think omitting the specifics and just talking about the concepts is kind of like fair game. So, but whatever, that's all we're going to say about confidentiality. Otherwise, people are going to start feeling weird. Next topic we're going to cover is arbitration, and I'll get into all of that. The non-competes that you guys have and the exclusivity expectations, which restricts what you could do for other teams and to promote yourself. The testing that's involved, like drug tests and physical agility tests and things like that. And then the waiver and release, where you basically sign your life away. I'm sure everybody's done a waiver to go to a trampoline park or water park. You sign a waiver every time you buy a ticket to an event or something. So, and like I said, name and likeness, and then just, termination. Everybody's probably familiar with termination at will, but the grounds for termination and how it's completely at their discretion. I mean, that's any employer, I think, but that's the gist of what we'll cover. If you have questions or I was talking about anything that's kind of like, whoa, slow down, can you put it in the little question box? I'll have a lot better time tracking it. And I definitely would love this to be as interactive as possible. So are you guys ready? I'm ready. I have so many notes. Okay. So the first point that I mentioned was like, who is your contract with? Because as you guys know, there's sometimes like a third party, like a separate management company that manages the cheerleaders. And so they're almost like a go-between from the employee, the dancer, the cheerleader. There's this management company, and then there's the team, right? And I should just go one step further and then just say that there's kind of the NFL, because even though they're not a party to the contract, meaning they're not signing it, there's so many things that you're bound by that has to do with the NFL that you just kind of having that. It's just good to know kind of the privity, I would guess you would say, of like who's all involved in your contracts. And I think sometimes there might be like E2K, for example, or different management companies that that manage the cheerleaders are almost like a go-between. So just paying attention to that, it's like who you're paid by, and just understanding who your true employer is. So the first piece that I wanted to really get into, I mean, the parties, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so all this additional stuff, you guys, when you have your contract, one of the first things that they set out up front is just that you are acknowledging that you are basically agreeing to be in compliance with and bound by several other documents. And I don't know about y'all, but I didn't see any of these documents when I signed my contracts, period. But there's apparently an NFL Constitution that we have to comply with. I have not even had a chance to Google all this stuff because I would have been down a rabbit hole, I'm sure. But there's an NFL Constitution. There are NFL rules and regulations. There is an NFL personal conduct policy. And I'm assuming that they're talking about the same thing that the players are bound by. I doubt they have a separate cheerleader personal conduct policy, but what does it say? We don't know. And then there's like the employee handbook for the team itself. They also have COVID-19 policies and procedures that the team has, as well as the NFL. So they list all this stuff out as though you know what they say and that you're going to agree to abide by all those rules and policies and regulations, et cetera. But we don't see them, right? One of the contracts I reviewed did have it as an exhibit. One of the documents, it was basically like an arbitration policy that they included as part of the agreement. One said that all of these documents are available for review and inspection if you go to the team's physical place of business, which nobody's going to like exercise that right? To be like, I'd like to make an appointment to inspect the NFL Constitution. Maybe it's on Google, you know what I mean, somewhere out there for public consumption. I'm not sure, but I just thought it was really interesting that you're agreeing when you sign these contracts to abide by a bunch of stuff that you just don't necessarily know diddly about. So like when I'm negotiating contracts, if the other side mentions like all these extra documents, like what I've seen in our contracts, that's one of the first things that I'm asking to review. Like I can't just agree to follow all that stuff if I haven't seen it. And so usually that's just part of the process, is understanding what those documents say so that you're not breaching the contract or just not aware of what you're signing up for. So just a little interesting note there. On the COVID NFL rules and regulations, one of the provisions was just saying that they may require you to be fully vaccinated in order to be on the field. And I've been trying to pay attention to this, like what the ultimate rule is going to be in terms of cheerleaders being on the field. There's so many positive indications that you will be able to be on the field, but they're obviously going to have some measures in place to make sure that everybody who is on the field is safe. And so one of the contracts did call out that you needed to be fully vaccinated in order to do that. And then agreeing to provide, proof of vaccination and taking these like screenings and things like that. So that's just important to know. I'm assuming, well, you never want to assume. I was just in Florida and they have a rule there that you can't require people to show their vaccine proof of vaccination. So, and people may have different opinions about it, but I think it's reasonable to say that if you want to do any of these auditions, be on the field, be on the court in the next season, that you probably will have to agree to some kind of COVID rules and regulations, which kind of makes sense, right? I think. So anyway, let's see. So let's talk about the promotion and the use of team logos. So basically, a lot of these contracts say the same thing. You can't use the team marks for publicity, press releases, social media, et cetera, to promote yourself, to advertise or promote events or any activities without getting prior approval. And I think most people in this space understand that you can't just necessarily post away in your uniform or using the marks of the team. I found it interesting that one of the contracts mentioned that you can't use uniform pics or any article of clothing that had like the team logo on it. So like fan gear, you know what I mean? For any social networking, dating apps, things like that. So it's really like, and I don't know who does that. I hope you guys, I mean, whatever, to each their own, but people using like cheerleading pictures for like dating apps, I hope that's really not what's going on, but who knows, maybe people are doing that. But again, I think we're used to this restriction, but one of the things that comes to mind for me is just that it's just uneven. Let's just get to the other part so you can see the flip side of it, right? So when it comes to them using, the teams using your name, your likeness, your image, like, I mean, the list is long of all the things that they can use, your voice, your signature, your any visual and audio recordings of you, images, testimonials, your bio information, like they can use anything about you for marketing and promotion of the team and the league, and exploit, they use that word, in any manner whatsoever without any further compensation to you. So you are an employee and you're basically signing away your right to let them use it however they want to. And I get that they have logos to protect and that they are trying to, minimize like the risk of exposure where you're using their logo, like you're in a uniform or you're doing it in a way that they may not agree with. But when you really think about how limiting that is for you to be able to leverage your own image and likeness, the scale is just so off. And somebody's commenting, so let me see. Hey, Candace, she says, I think okay, this is the wrong top. How do I get it so I can see? I think that's so ironic because the players are absolutely free to use their pics in uniform for self-marketing, like club hosting flyers. Yeah, so I don't even know if that's something that varies by team because like for here in Seattle, for example, Marshawn Lynch, it was like some cheesy ass plumbing commercial, right? Where it's like, I won't even say the name of the slogan, but anyway, but they were able to wear clothes that were in the team colors. So they could have like a blue football jersey that didn't have the Seahawks logo on it. That could be blue and lime green, but they couldn't use giggles. I think that they even could maybe use the number. I want to say that might be iffy, but there were rules around them using the Seahawks logo when they were doing some of their promo, like endorsement related activity. Maybe that varies by team. I'm not even sure, but there is definitely a double standard there, Candace, of like how the NFL players, and we've seen like the flyers and stuff for like parties, and they're doing some things. Maybe it's specific to endorsements. Maybe that's the like catch. But for certain events and appearances and things like that, maybe it's a whole different story. But you're so right that it's kind of hypocritical that the guys are able to do certain things and that we're not. And meaning the guys as the players. But it's also just that, there should be some sort of rule that like, to the extent your team has taken a picture of you, used your voice, like anything about your likeness to promote the team, that you should be able to like repurpose that to suit your own interests. It's different from like kind of creating your willy-nilly promotional materials where you might, I don't know, take it and make it more risque or do something that's questionable with it. But if it's like a shot or a picture from the website or something from social media that they have approved to use your name and your likeness, then why can't you repurpose that to promote yourself? Like as part of this podcast, especially when you think about how limited people are in being able to just identify the fact that they were a particular team cheerleader. Like they have to say, I was a cheerleader for a team in the Philadelphia area, like, or, like they have to kind of talk around actually naming the team because just the name of the team itself is a mark that's kind of covered under these rules. And it's really, really limiting. And I think it's something that this is just to talk about, right? Because are we able to negotiate? Do we have any leverage whatsoever? No. Do we have a union? No. But when you think about what's even going on in like NCAA, and again, these are athletes who weren't being paid at all. We're paid. We're just not getting any additional compensation for the use of our name or likeness. But I just want to give you a little taste of what the Supreme Court ruling basically a couple weeks ago ended up doing for these athletes, to the extent you weren't paying attention. The NCAA had some really, I mean, don't get me started. That's a whole other conversation about the NCAA and their exploitation of their athletes. But there was just a lot of momentum with different states passing laws where they were kind of like, you know what, this is BS. They should, athletes should be able to, profit off of their name and likeness, especially since not all of them make the league or make it professionally. And the Supreme Court sided with the students. And so now the NCAA is acting like they just are thrilled to do this, but they're totally not. But they have established new guidelines now that allow, the student athletes to basically get their own endorsement deals. And I'm just going to mention some of the things that have popped off, because basically as soon as that rule went into effect, people were, some of the more popular student athletes, a lot of women too, were just taking advantage of this so that they can market and promote themselves. So again, they can have endorsement deals with brands. They can sell the rights to their names, images, and likeness. So that can be anything from like, what are these examples? Like playing video games with fans and basically charging a fee for that. Monetizing their social media, their podcasts, sending personalized video and like audio messages to fans and social media interaction that you can actually pay for. One girl ended up doing like video cooking lessons. One of the players was actually a musician, and now he's able to promote his concerts and shows, which before that he wasn't able to do. They can pursue paid speaking engagements, public appearances. They can kind of book that for themselves. They can also sell their own personally branded or autographed merchandise. So some of them are coming out with apparel lines. And then some of these contracts, like endorsements, it might end up being something like, a contract that pays a certain sum of money just, for association with that brand, or this kind of like in-kind deals where they'll give you a product, not necessarily for free, but they'll give you their product just in exchange for you promoting it on social media. And this is something that, again, for college athletes that weren't getting paid at all, just opening this up has like so much room for possibility. When you think about it in our space, some of these contracts aren't explicitly saying that you cannot do that. Most of them are restricting your ability to do that by using the team name or logo. So you'll see people who obviously have like launched different businesses or things where they're kind of like, again, not mentioning the team name, or maybe saying something generic like NFL cheerleader or NBA dancer to leverage whatever it is that they're doing. But some of the contracts are actually more explicit. And like one of them like said something like, you may not commit any act that could create notoriety for yourself or potentially reflect the team in a negative or adverse light. So they mentioned specifically the idea of the cheerleaders writing a memoir. Like that was one of the one of the examples that they mentioned there. So, I mean, if you're thinking about like, hey, I've had such an amazing life as a pro cheerleader. I, have all these pictures, and I have a whole chest here of stuff that I've gathered over the years of, things that I would love to be able to capture in a book one day or something like that. But when you think about some of the things that you are restricted from doing, it's basically preventing you from leveraging that and creating a name for yourself and really using and talking about your experience as a professional cheerleader. So it's just something that I think we should be like thinking about, right? Like, what can we do about it? Again, without a union or something of that sort to kind of negotiate this a little bit more, I don't think we'll be on par with some of the athletes. But when you think about like the money that's pumped in some of these programs, like DCC, and I don't follow them completely. So if they've already done this, which I would not be surprised, then so be it. But, we become role models, right? In the communities, there are people who look up to you. You're really well recognizable, and you have like a social media following. I mean, if you wanted to have like a little doll made in your honor, or like, it doesn't have to be a Barbie doll, but something where it's your name, your image, your likeness, they can do it, meaning the team, the NFL can do it. They can use your image, and all of those things that I named for any purpose that they want whatsoever, in perpetuity, mind you, meaning forever and worldwide, and they don't owe you anything, but you're not able to do that for yourself or have any piece of that. I just think, again, is just very limiting. And along with that, you also are kind of giving up your rights to, being able to bring claims for invasion of privacy, defamation of character, or, if they were to alter or distort any of your information, or like, I don't know, like use a clip of you that's, I'm trying to make up examples, but say there's just something that they do that you really aren't proud of or aren't happy about. You have kind of no claims for any of that. That's what you're signing away in these contracts. So, and you just waive all of those rights. You can't review it. You can't approve it. You can't have any say-so of how it's used. It's really unfortunate. And as we saw with the Washington football team, I mean, to the extent that your likeness, your image, video content of you is used in an inappropriate way, I mean, there's language in these contracts that kind of can limit your remedies and your rights to kind of go after that, which is really disgusting. I know they did it anyway, and they got paid for it, as they should. But just stuff to think about. And again, it's just a very unbalanced world that we're in right now. So I'm not even like complaining. This is not even a rant. I'm just telling you what the contracts say, understanding that some of these provisions obviously do make sense, but I just think it's good to kind of think about what if it was different, right? And we do see trends for, movement in this space. If you look at the NCAA, like I said, I think that's one example where now that the restrictions are lifted, there's a lot of opportunity for people to establish themselves in a way to leverage this sweat equity that they're putting into their careers as athletes. And we are athletes, so why should we be treated any differently, right? Okay, so the next concept that we're going to cover is arbitration. I hope this is juicy enough. I find it interesting, but y'all let me know if you are just like, I'm lost. Shoot me a question in the box. I'm happy to talk about anything in more detail. But let's talk arbitration. So if you have like a dispute, a claim that you are wanting to bring and have resolved, you're either going to go to court or you're going to agree to arbitration. And arbitration is supposed to be quicker, cheaper. You kind of have like a couple different arbitration associations where you're agreeing on who's going to look over your case, and they're going to basically kind of mediate and make a decision that would be something that it's either binding, or you, if you don't like what they say, you can kind of go to court. It's the whole mechanism to like avoid trials and all of that kind of stuff. Is supposed to be easier and speedier. And so pretty much all the agreements that I reviewed had an arbitration provision, meaning that you're agreeing that any dispute that you have would be resolved by private, binding, and final arbitration, which, okay, fine. But when I saw that the NFL commissioner is the one who, he can delegate, I guess, or he can select somebody else, but essentially he is the one who makes the final and binding decision on the matter. And he gets to decide in his sole discretion, like if he's going to sit over that matter or not. Like he has, they call it kind of like a football oriented claim. And so and that's based on like, if it's a claim that is a violation of all those extra freaking documents that I mentioned, a violation of the Constitution, a violation of the bylaws, violation of the rules and the regulations, if he determines in his sole discretion that the claim is related to that, then he gets to sit over it. And again, that just gives a lot of discretion and a lot of power for him to basically decide how these cases land. And there's only like a small carve out of the types of claims that would not be subject to Roger Goodell sitting over it in arbitration. And those are like employment claims. So things like workers' compensation, things like, Wage Act claims, unemployment compensation benefits, things like that, he cannot arbitrate over. And that's probably because it's built in some of the laws. Like when you think about the wage cases in the NFL that we've had over the past few years, because they were based on like federal law on things like wages and things like that, they didn't have that power to keep that kind of in-house. So, but that leaves open a hella other types of claims, right? That I'm assuming that he can argue fits under his purview. Like when you think about sexual harassment claims, when you think about discrimination claims, like FMLA, labor claims, like all of that kind of stuff, like the ADA. Who knows? Because we don't know what these goddamn documents look like. But I think those types of claims can definitely be sucked in as something that the commissioner has complete say so over, and it's final and it's binding and it's not appealable even. It's just like the end. And so, again, what can we do about that? Not much, but I just thought it was really, really interesting because, again, the NFL has taken the stance that when it comes to these cheerleader issues or problems or concerns that bubble up to the surface and it hits the press, they take the position that they don't manage the professional cheerleading teams in the NFL, that the teams do it, and that they kind of like have this hands-off approach, like we have nothing to do with it. Each team is different, blah, 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 blah. But when you look at the agreements, you see that there's a whole lot of NFL going on up in these agreements, and the commissioner has a lot of say in how anything is determined, like as a claim that these cheerleaders would have. So when you really, really think about it and connect those dots, that position that they hold doesn't really make sense to me, period. So that was one of the things that I also wanted to cover, just so that you guys kind of just can think through these concepts, because, you don't just listen to whatever they say. I mean, it's not like we, again, are going to sit down and negotiate with these teams. You make the team, you have orientation, you sign the contract, you might get a copy, you might not. But I just think it's important to understand like what we're agreeing to. The next concept was kind of like the non-compete, like you can't serve directly or indirectly as a cheerleader for another sports team or amateur, college, like any of that stuff without written consent, which, I mean, can you really do the job of like being a professional cheerleader for multiple teams at one time? I don't know how that would work. But, sometimes that exclusivity or like that non-compete is a little bit broader. So like I've seen a reference to just dance and modeling. So that would mean like doing commercial work. So if you're on a pro team and you wanted to do a commercial as a dancer, or you wanted to, I don't know, have an agent that books different gigs for you that's in commercial dance while you're on a team, some of these contracts may restrict that. And I think that's important to know, especially if you have aspirations of doing that after you stop being a part of a team, having that kind of limitation on you, especially with respect to modeling and things like that. You just want to be mindful of that, because maybe you do. Like if I was a freaking model before I popped up into the pro cheer world, and my contract had some restriction where I was not able to do that while I was on the team, I probably would have wanted to have a conversation just to see if that was a restriction that can be like an exception that can be made, because if that's part of my bread and butter or something that I'm really serious about doing, I should have the ability to continue to do that as long as it doesn't conflict with the obligation to be on the team. And I've talked about it before with some of the directors that I've interviewed. Chrissy alone comes to mind with the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, she's very upfront with her dancers. They have agencies that come to their auditions, and they really encourage their dancers to basically have dance as a profession. And so she doesn't stand in the way, and their contracts don't restrict their dancers from doing other things. And I think that's just something I wish more teams were like that about it, because again, how else do you guys get to like shape your future? You know what I mean? If you're just so restricted while you're part of a team. That's like the number one thing I hear from alumni is like, you have to try to like build your life post cheerleading, like while you're on the team. But the reason that a lot of people don't or can't is because of what these contracts say. So let's see, there's only a couple more things. I thought the drug testing was really interesting. Like if there's any reasonable suspicion of drug use, that you can just be randomly tested. I mean, I think about that with the guys, but not so much with the dancers or cheerleaders. And then just, the fact that they can do physical agility tests. Like, I know we've moved a little bit away from weigh-ins and just a lot of policing of your weight. But one of the things that came to mind was just like, some of these crazy conditioning and camps that you guys are doing, like the Titans, the Ravens, like even Miami Dolphins. Like, can you imagine if like during the year, any of those like physical fitness tests and things that you're doing to build that conditioning, if they could just randomly, like, let me see how many sit-ups you could do and whatever. I don't even know what these little tests are because I'm just not working out anymore. But just the fact that physical agility tests were something that was called out in one of the agreements. It's just, I'm sure you'll know that if that's like an actual practice of the team, but a lot of them have that same language that you're being selected based on your dance ability and your physical appearance at auditions, and they expect you to maintain that. And so they're a lot less explicit on like how they're going to do that. Again, I think weigh-ins may be something of the past to some extent, but just know that you are held to some standards, and it may involve some random tests, whether it's drug tests or, some physical fitness tests. I would fail. Not the drug, but I would fail physically. Well, that's not true. You have to keep it up during the season to be able to survive a game. But I just thought that was pretty interesting. Let's see what's left. The waiver and release, I think, is left because I kind of went all out of order. But, you guys were with me, I think, for the conversation. So, again, the waivers are not new, I'm sure, to anybody because like, again, you're signing those all the time that if anything happens to you, don't sue me, you can't sue me. And so I just thought it was interesting because, again, when it comes to bringing claims that I think I could see coming up in our space, again, like I said, like the discrimination or the sexual harassment or different types of claims, you're basically completely forever waiving and releasing the commissioner individually. You couldn't sue Roger Goodell in his individual capacity. You can't sue him in his official capacity as commissioner of the NFL. You can't sue the NFL and any other league that, the team that you're on would join. You can't sue other member clubs. You can't sue owners, stockholders, directors, officers, or employees of these teams either in their individual or capacity working for the organization. So it's just something that, again, I think with some of the really egregious behavior of some of the personnel for some of these teams over the years, knowing that the cheerleaders may have been bound by a waiver and release where they weren't able to go after that person to say that you harm me, I have a claim against you. It's just something that I just think in the day and age that we live in, it really makes, and again, the lack of bargaining power or the imbalance of power makes it where you're basically signing a lot away. And I've been to start with that I get that this is a privilege and honor and all of the things, and that there isn't room to negotiate all these points, but it's just something that I think when we imagine a different world that we could exist in, that it's just something it's worth examining like what you're being held to, and really questioning it, because I don't think it's very fair. I think there's room for there to be some movement on this. This is kind of what the union's all about with NFL players. I mean, maybe there was some room that they kind of were able to negotiate on certain points to give them more freedom to do certain things. And so I just wanted to talk about it with you guys because, again, this is what I do day in, day out, not these types of contracts, but I do find it really interesting. Again, as part of my role, I'm negotiating with another party. And so we're kind of trying to find a middle ground. And, it's kind of like what works in the best interest of both parties. But here, I think just because of the opportunity to dance professionally, it's kind of like, here's the paper, sign it. But I would just encourage everybody to read it, number one. If you have questions about it, you could consult with a lawyer, or just generally conceptually, if you have a question, I'm happy to answer it. Won't be legal advice, but I think it's really good just to understand. And again, you may not be able to like push back, but think about your life, think about what you're interested in, think about what your goals are after you stop dancing. Think about how being a part of a team can help prepare you or position you for success in whatever it is that you want to do next. And really think about like what you are allowed to do to prepare in that way. And understanding like maybe it is just a conversation like, hey, or I'm a dance studio owner, I have to be able to promote my business. Here's the bio that I have on my website. This is how I reference what I do as part of the team. Like maybe it's just some conversation so that there's an understanding, because you guys shouldn't limit yourselves more than you need to, just to be a part of the teams. I think there's just some give and take there. I think there's room for it if you are knowledgeable about what the expectations are. And again, if you already have this stuff going on in your life, especially in that instance, if you already are modeling, if you already are making a living doing some of these things, or you really do have a game plan as to how you want to do that after, just kind of having that conversation where you can get that comfort level or get that consent that's required so that you are set up to be able to do the things that you need to do. So I hope that was helpful. People are saying it was informative. I'm glad people are not asleep. I mean, if you guys, again, have any questions that you want to ask later, I'm more than happy to kind of help you understand it. And again, maybe it's just a conversation that you have with the director. There were a lot of other provisions in there just around like being a part of the team and what the expectations are with practices and not posing in the nude and doing all these obvious things that I don't think anybody would really do. So I skipped all that stuff. But again, I know that these are confidential agreements. Thank you for trusting me with them. And again, I hope conceptually you understand the lay of the land. And if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. So anyway, that was kind of Contracts 101. It's so much better doing it like this than actually recording an episode. So I appreciate you bearing with me. And we have one more cheer chat to go, you guys, for this season. I can't believe it. I don't know, maybe because of that one weird week or two that I had off. It just seems like this end of the season kind of snuck up on me. But if you have topics that you want to talk about one good last time for cheer chat next week, let me know. And I'll be on social media when the season's over too. So obviously if something goes down, I'm going to hop on live and talk to you guys about it. If you have episode ideas for next season or people that you want me to interview, do let me know, because it's good to get on these schedules early, and sometimes there's approvals that have to happen. So happy to get those wheels in motion for you guys. But I'm definitely pulling for everybody that's still going through auditions. Make these teams and let me know if there's anything that I can do to support you. Yeah, I kind of don't want to let you guys go, but let me know if you have any other questions. Otherwise, I will. I hope you guys have a good night. And I'll be watching to see these last couple of squad announcements. Take care, you guys. Good luck with everything. Thank you.